Okay, I've been asked by a number of you who have worked with me if I would please provide a summary reminder of the couples counsel that we taught and guided you through during the private couples retreat. And I'm going to try to do that informally right now as I'm working on an ebook and some things that will make it perhaps more of a take-home tool that you can use later to download. But let's start with this audio. So the couples counsel, which I'm now thinking about renaming to the SoulArts solution, because it really is a solution. It's a solution to the habit patterns and the dysfunction that we all tend to get into when old subconscious wounds are triggered, or when we go through a very difficult time in a relationship, such as an infidelity or some other relational issue, or just long-term periods of time where we haven't attended to relationship and we have defaulted into just some natural sloppiness because we're going about life and we forget that we have to put some effort and energy into building communication. So I like the SoulArts solution because it kind of has that idea of when you get into an argument or somebody catches themselves. I know we talked about having a safe word. I like the soul it. It's sort of like table it, you know? You could say soul it, and that means it's a flag for stop what we're doing. We're going to take it to the soul. And when I say it, I like it from the soul it, table it standpoint, but also IT, meaning internal truth, so that we're going to go look at the soul's inner truth together in a council, which is the solution. So see what you think about that. And here I'm going to provide just a quick, maybe it'll be about 20 minutes, summary recap on what, why, and how. So the real idea behind the SoulArts solution as a way of communication is to stop, break, end the dysfunctional patterns and to reestablish the open-hearted vulnerability of relationship being a journey of two people, each taking responsibility for where they need to grow, and that relational problems really are flags that crop up that are teaching us, showing us, giving us a flashlight on things that each of us need to individually look at within ourselves versus the habitual, easy way out, which is to project onto the other and become self-righteous or angry and attack the other person and get caught up in old wounds and triggers that crossfire and finger point. So that's the point of SoulArts Solution Couples Counsel. And here's a quick when to do it, when not to do it. So take this one to heed, because if you do it at the wrong time or enter it in the wrong way or de-emphasize the quote-unquote rules of the game, if you violate the rules of the game, of the protocol, you will be violating trust, and there's no way to go back then. So this is one of those tools that has to be honored with an utmost effort on both people's parts. So if two people aren't willing to step into this as a journey for, let's say, 6 months, let's say every 2 weeks for the next 3 months at a minimum, that we're going to do that we're going to do this counsel every 2 weeks for the next 90 days, and then we're going to look back and see what we discovered. If two people will commit to that and very, very strictly adhere to it, you're going to see a dramatic change in your relationship, and you're going to know at the end of those 90 days whether the two of you are in a sacred relationship together, and if not, you're going to have the clarity to know that it's time to split and go in different directions, or to resolve the relationship in another fashion, but to do it honorably. So that's the first part. See if both of you will commit to doing it twice a week for 90 days. And that means not engaging in the arguments in the household. I mean, stopping using the word soul it to mean we're going to table it for counsel and we're going to set a date right now, or whatever other fun name you've got for when you want to call that we need to stop, we're starting to engage. That's the first commitment, that without it, there's not much point. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is, when do you enter into the SoulArts solution or the couples counsel process? So here's the do and the don't. You don't ever do it when you're both angry or right at the time when the altercation has come up. You never do it then. Do you remember why? You don't do it then because at that moment, both people are triggered and they've got old patterns engaged. And none of us have the clarity or the capacity to simply instantly bypass that trigger. And what happens is we're very self-righteous in our feelings, and we project it out to the other person. So when an altercation, a disagreement comes up, it's important to say, soul it, or this, we're going to take this to counsel, because then it's a trigger, it's a mark to each of you that you take the next 2 days, 3 days. I always recommend 3 at least, 2 to 3 days. So set up your date then, 2 to 3 days to do your own work. And for those 2 or 3 days, what you do is you look in and take your own responsibility. You have to work through the part of you that wants to blame the other person, that wants to that wants to be self-righteous about why you're right, that they were wrong. You have to go through all of that until you filter down through, wow, this is triggering old ways, that I was brought up, or this is bringing up my fear of not being enough, or this is bringing up I'm always feeling invisible, or this. You have to have time to go through your process, your own coming clean. You want to come clean before the counsel. And with that in mind, I highly recommend that each person do a little bit of time looking up, for example, one good resource is Byron Katie called thework.org, and it's just a nice protocol for learning how to see and step past our own projections, because I'm telling you, we really believe our projections. And if you can start to see, start to experiment, start to loosen the grip around what we are so darn sure is correct, that will serve you great. So you don't ever engage in the SoulArts solution when the anger is there or the frustration is there. And that's the commitment two people both have to make too, which is if one person says, soul it, or whatever word you guys came up with, that means stop. I'm catching that we're starting to engage. Both people have to agree. When that word is said, you stop. You don't continue the argument. You don't continue the discussion. You stop, no matter what it is. And you both pause, stop, and you know that now you're going to address it. You're going to wait in a couple of days, and you're going to address it through a more soulfully depth of clarity after each person has done some reflection, some self-growth, some stepping into their own soul's deepest truth and gotten all the projection off so that there's a deeper clarity. That's the second commitment. Another one, especially for the first month, would be to do the every 2 weeks counsel, not on a hot subject. To start out with just learning how to do the art of it, learning how to step into SoulArts solution as a way of communicating from the soul, specifically for your own personal growth, as an honoring act to this person that you are married to or in partnership with, where you're not reporting to them, you're actually having the courage to speak from what you need to hear within yourself, as clean as you can get, pulling all of it relating to the person off, and having the courage for them to hear it so that they can go, this person's working on this. So when we're having struggles or troubles, it's bringing up this for that person. They're struggling with a feeling of loss, or a feeling of not good enough, or a feeling, so that sort of thing, okay? The next thing is, when you do go into counsel, when you do go into the SoulArts solution circle, then you set it up as something special. And that's important too, because if it's just done sort of haphazardly on the fly, without much care given to it, then that's a signal to the other person, to yourself, to your soul, that you don't take it all that seriously, or that you're half-assed about it, or you're sort of sloppy in your entry. So the honoring of how you step into it, just even as a tangible ceremony, is important for much more than the ceremony. The ceremony itself is not so important. It's what it signifies, what it's saying. It's saying, I consider this journey of my own soul's truth and coming clean within myself and growing to my highest truth and having the courage to share it with you, this person I'm married to in partnership with. I consider it so significantly important that I'm going to demonstrate that by how we set up our space, our sacred space. So if you remember, we set up a circle. We make it a nice space. We know when the time is. We don't do it when we're tired, and we don't do it when we're angry or completely stressed out, because that is not honoring. And if we know we're doing a council at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, then we prepare for it, and we take some time to be careful on the night before, and we make sure that we're entering into it as a caring, self-caring commitment. So if you remember, then we sit in a special place. We signify symbolically that we're drawing a bubble over each other. We put ourselves into a bubble, which means we're saying now the rest of the world is out, and it's just you and I. And that helps the whole subconscious know that there's a certain safety arena that we're committing to. And then you start to go into that inner quiet place to see if there's anything that needs to come out of that bubble in order for you to reach the deepest truth and not be throwing something off onto the other person, to stay clean, to have the guts to go vulnerable. So you might take out projecting onto you. You might take out frustration, or you might take out tiredness. And then you each listen for what you're called to bring into the circle in order to also go to the deepest place of the soul's truth. The soul's truth is not what the mind's agenda is. So don't misuse soul when it's your mind. The soul is completely free of the other person, free of projection, isn't the other person focused at all. So you're looking for that. So I need to take out perhaps putting things off on you. That would be one thing you might take out. And I might bring in the ability to actually be more vulnerable, to see what is being called in me to grow that I'm a little bit afraid to see right now. Maybe I'll bring in a little bit of playfulness and humor, because that opens up the field a little bit, so I'm not so serious that I get constricted. And then if you remember, there's a talking piece in the center. And the talking piece, when you hold the talking piece, when you pick it up, you're not rehearsing, you're not thinking about what you're going to say, and you're not reporting to the other person. You're holding that stick and you're listening inside of your soul, the deepest place you can go now that you've gotten it clean from the other person, to find what you're called to grow in yourself. So especially if there has been issues or patterns of disruption in the relationship, rather than misusing counsel as a way to try to have an agenda on that person, there can be no agenda. And that's where a lot of couples are making their mistake, because they're starting to use counsel as a way to hold the stick, command attention, because the other person can't interrupt, and then they proceed to go ahead and sort of subtly or not so subtly let the other person know how they've betrayed them, put them down, how bad they feel. That's not the soul speaking. That is the mind speaking. So when it's the soul, it'll be, wow, I'm noticing that I'm still having a hard time. I'm still struggling with some of the things that we experienced 2 months ago, for example. And I'm watching all the ways I want to blame you, and I'm seeing that that's how I react, rather than because it's scary as hell for me to admit that I've got some things to grow inside of myself, and I'm constantly looking out to make sure everything's safe with you, and I can just see how much I'm doing that. That's more like the soul talking, because I'm noticing what I'm doing when I'm not in the soul. That's a perfect use of counsel. But you don't have it be something like, when you do blah blah blah, because now it's an attack, there's a defensiveness. So there's no reporting to the other person. So minimize the use of you, and the very wisest way to start is something like I just suggested. Wow, I'm noticing inside myself, even right now, that part of me is afraid to step into this solution council and speak vulnerably. Like, I'm noticing how afraid I am to be completely honest, even with myself, in front of you or anybody. And it's making me realize that, or wonder how much that's stopping me in my life. See, there's nothing put on the other person with that sentence. The other thing about the counsel is that you keep when you have the talking stick, the other person doesn't interrupt, but you also can't misuse the tool. So keep your speech short, concise, not reporting to the other person, but stretching into the deepest, come clean, be vulnerable, and say what you need to hear yourself admit to yourself. That's all you're doing. And try to keep it in less than a minute before you put the talking stick down again. So don't commandeer the talking stick. And the other person does not need to respond to you. So if you're using counsel to get your needs met, wrong agenda. And it's not appropriate. And the other person has a right to then not be in counsel with you. They have to say that we're not able to do counsel right now. I'm sad by that, but we need to end counsel because we're not entering it correctly. And that is a perfectly fair response when it's genuinely the case. The other thing about counsel is that you don't go until you get a resolve. It's not about resolve. The ego self, the part that's inflamed or needy or confused, is the one that needs resolve. That's why we're talking about a 90-day commitment to self-growth. So this is a self-growth communication tool. It's a tool for both people to grow in their own clarity, come clean in some of the ways that they've been caught in their own psychology and in their own patterns and wounds. And then to see, once that clarity and cleanliness has happened between two people, then you will be able to see if and what kind of relationship truly exists between you with the clarity now in place. So that's the whole point. So you don't look for resolve or the issues that are out on the table are completely worked out. You simply leave it as an unknown travel. It's a journey. It's a journey together. And so there has to be a release for a little bit of time. There has to be a release of clarity in order to get to clarity. There has to be enough of a release of it that there's not neediness, attachment, because both of those constrict the mind. They both constrict and heighten emotions. And when that happens, our psychology, our wounds, our patterns flare up, and there's no way to get to clarity. So you have to drop that for a 90-day commitment. And you have to hold to the deepest intent of what the counsel is about. So I hope that this short, very short guide, if you listen to it and really follow it, and when you're out in the household, you don't engage in those things that have caused habitual problems. You say soul it, and each person does some growth. Do some of the readings that we talked about. Take a couple days to investigate your own and come clean to it, your own inner vulnerability. Like, wow, I see that whenever somebody criticizes me, I do this. It's a personal journey that you guys are sharing together to see if the relationship is going to mature to a level of what I call a sacred marriage, a marriage that supports both individuals on a path of their own highest growth so that they can live their true purpose. And if not that, if you can communicate in this way long enough to discover what the most honorable way to continue in relationship or not is, so that if it comes to it's time for us to end the relationship, it's done from a place of true love, respect, and care. So both people have to be stretching way beyond where you think it's comfortable. You have to stretch. It's very hard to see your own blind spot. It's very easy to see the other person's blind spot. And it's really easy to point out the other person's blind spot. That all is the part that has to stop. And there has to be an engagement into this process. And I'm making it a very short period of time. 90 days is nothing, really. But if you do it for 90 days, every 2 weeks, starting the first month with just practicing the art, so not with anything that's an issue, just learning how to disclose from the soul and keeping it clean, and about yourself and what you're discovering. And then if you'll do that for just 90 days, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times is all, really. And you don't interrupt and you stop the engagement in the outs when you're out in your household, and then look back after that 90 days, you're going to see a difference. You're going to see if there's something worth pursuing and continuing in this way. But you've got to put that first bit of commitment to it. So I hope that will help. And if some of you are interested in an ebook and some other materials and resources that I'm going to start putting together, shoot me an email sometime and let me know some requests, and I'll try to weave that into what I'm pulling together. And I will tell you that for those who have done this process, myself included, it has been a complete life changer.
This audio program is produced by Center for SoulArts with author and teacher Ronda LaRue. For more information about books, events, and programs with Ronda LaRue, please visit us at www.centerforsoularts.com.